Welcome to the Workology Podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller-Merrill, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
Welcome to the Workology Podcast, sponsored by Clear Company. The search for optimum productivity and maximum efficiency is a struggle as we juggle our personal lives and professional ones, not to mention friendships, families, and our personal interests. There never seems to be enough time to get everything done. Our next podcast guest walks us through strategies to choose to be your most productive self and tackle that to-do list. Today I'm joined by speaker, trainer, and author Maura Neville-Thomas. Her area of expertise is attention management as the new path to productivity. Maura, welcome to the Workology Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Jessica. Happy to be here.
Can you talk a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I've been in the productivity industry for my entire professional career. I started out working for a company that sold paper-based planners and training, and I worked there for almost a decade. And then when I left, I was able to take the best of what I had learned about the industry and roll it up into the methodology that I sort of assembled and created and that I teach now. And so that was all about time management and productivity. And around 2010, I started to recognize that time management was really failing us because it wasn't really that we never could manage time. Time really isn't our issue. Everyone has the same 24 hours in a day, but some people are more productive than others. And I realized that the biggest challenge that we had today is distraction and all of the demands on our attention. So I started writing and studying about this idea of attention management. And that's been really the focus of my work, attention management rather than time management as the path to productivity for now almost a decade doing that.
So talk to us about attention management. Walk us through. I think that most of us probably are aware of being distracted by their phones and their watches and friends and family and all that stuff. But how is that different than time management?
Yeah, so if you and I decided that we were going to go out to lunch because we wanted to get to know each other better. So we made a plan, we managed our time. We said on Tuesday at noon, we are going to get together to do this. And in fact, Tuesday at noon rolls around and we actually meet at the restaurant. So we have effectively managed our time. But when we get there, I say to you, you know what, Jessica, I would never do this, but let's just say, for example, that I said to you, you know what, Jessica, I am expecting a really important message. Would you mind if I just leave my phone out just in case it comes in? It'll only take me a minute. I'm sorry, but would you mind? And you say, sure, no problem. So then the phone rings and let me check. Oh, no, that's not it. Okay, what were you saying? And then I get a text message. Oh, no, that's not it. I'm sorry, what were you saying? And then another notification. Oh, that's it. Could you excuse me for just a minute while I handle this? So then I'm heads down in my phone. And so then what do you do when I'm heads down in my phone? Very likely.
I'm on my phone.
You pull out your phone, of course. And so before you know it, you have the situation where I'm sure you've seen when you go to restaurants, there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 people sitting at a table and everyone is heads down in their phone. So it doesn't change the fact that the time that we planned to be together will pass. The time will still pass, but we won't have the experience that we intended if we aren't also devoting our attention. And so to me, how you manage your time is only relevant to the extent that you also devote your attention. So therefore, attention management is much more relevant than time management.
I've thought a lot about that lately as I think about all the distractions and, like you said, you make the time to meet with someone for lunch or for a meeting or as part of a conference call or a work meeting, only to find yourself on your keyboard other places on your phone, not really devoting 100% to that other person or what your objective was to get accomplished.
It is a huge problem, and I see attention management as, I mean, it's sort of self-explanatory, right? We understand what the two words mean together, managing your attention, but really, what specifically is it? And to me, it's really a collection of behaviors. It's not just one thing. Attention management is sort of the same concept as healthy living, right? There are a whole bunch of things that go into healthy living. And some days you do some of them, but not all of them. And some days you're really good at it. And other days you're sort of really bad at it. But you try. It's a focus. You decide that, you know what, I really want to be healthy. I want to do things that are good for me. And so you make it a focus. And so you try every day. And some days you're good and other days you're not so good. And I see attention management as the same thing. It's sort of a collection of behaviors, things like focusing and building up your ability to focus and the ability to effectively manage your distractions, controlling your environment and controlling your technology. It's the ability to be present in your moments, to engage your flow, to get so engrossed in something that the time just passes and your highest and best self comes out. All of these things give you the ability to sort of unleash your full brain power on your life, your full consideration, your attention, your full presence, you know, all of the result. If it's a personal thing or if it's a professional thing, it's all of the benefits of your wisdom, skill, and abilities to bear on the issue at hand, instead of this sort of halfway, I'm sort of listening, kind of, but I have so much else going on right now. And, oh, look, there's an email that came in and I'm sorry, what did you say? And, you know, it's funny. There's a part in my trainings where I talk about, okay, I'm going to show you this thing and I want you to answer these two questions. So the first question is X and the second question is X. You ready? Here we go. And I show them this image for 3 seconds, and then I say, now what do you think? And they go, what were the questions again? So this is sort of how we approach our lives, and it's really just diminishing the quality of our lives.
I think this focus on attention management versus just productivity is a great strategy, a long-term strategy for individuals as well as organizations. I think I know the reason, but when you're explaining to an organization or a business leader about why they need attention management training, resources, workshops over just productivity classes or time management classes, what's the ROI and how it will impact the business?
I have a very specific definition of productivity that guides my work. So there's a dictionary definition that I use, and it is achieving or producing a significant amount or result. Now, there's a sort of a manufacturing or a production piece in there, right? Producing a significant amount. But if we take that piece out, what we're left with is achieving a significant result. That's the definition of productivity. So for my frame, in my line of work, what I think is that how productive you are in any given time frame is how much progress you have made in the results that are significant to you, whatever those results might be, and you get to decide. And when we talk about what are the results that are significant to me, I think the frame for that is, what kind of person do you want to be and what kind of life do you want to lead? To me, it's about living a life of choice rather than a life of reaction. And choosing our path intentionally rather than just getting swept away by all of the demands that are constantly assaulting us. And so what that does for an organization is that it makes their people, it frees up their people to really bring the full weight of their genius to the organization, to the benefit of the organization's success. And it also makes them better employees because they become better people. They become, this elusive idea of balance actually gets not so elusive anymore. And so I believe that the only sustainable success is the kind of success that treats people as people and recognizes that we are better employees when we have downtime and when we have something left at the end of the day to bring to our families and our communities.
I love what you said, which was living intentionally and by choice. Imagine if your team members or just you came to work every day and was your best self because you chose to be, and you thought very intentionally and thoroughly and made decisions to say, okay, is checking my email every 5 minutes or going to this meeting that isn't important because I'm not involved in this process, I'm just here to be present, just check a box. Your time is so much more effective. It's so much more important, and I would see how you would have better results because you can really devote your attention in that meeting that you really needed to be in or that project that you really needed to be a part of instead of just kind of sitting there like a robot.
Or sitting in the meeting so that your body is physically present, but also, reading your email and doing other things at the same time while you're pretending that you're taking notes. Or maybe you do actually have a document open so that you can type up the notes from the meeting. But meanwhile, the emails are coming in fast and furious and the chat messages. And oh, by the way, you forgot that you still have Facebook open. And so now all those likes are coming in. And oh, I'm sorry, what did you say? Are we having a meeting? Right? So, yeah, it's, I think that the most important thing that we need to recognize as professionals is that we risk living a life of reaction, but we can live a life of choice.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about organizations and what they can do. You have several books, but in one of your books, Work Without Walls, you talk about how an organization can create a culture of inefficiency unintentionally, and it impacts the organization through performance and work. You have a number of articles published on Harvard Business Review. What do you think companies can do to help set their leaders and those teams up for success so that they can be their best selves and be able to focus on getting work done instead of worrying about all these other fires and things that are happening in their lives?
Sure. So there are many things. And the first thing to recognize is that people are drowning. I've had the ability to work with over 1,100 organizations since starting my business and approaching 33,000 people. And what I have discovered is that almost everyone is drowning. Everyone is managing, not everyone, but most professionals are very successful, and they're successful sort of in spite of the fact that they are struggling to hang on. They are their solution to the overwhelming amounts of communication and information that they receive is just to work longer, to work more. And so as a result, you're seeing a lot of burnout and turnover and absenteeism and detriments in our personal lives because we spend so much time working and because we feel this pressure to always be connected to work. And so one of the things that organizations can do or leadership can do is just recognize that these skills are not taught in school, and the business environment is changing so much, and it's so much different than it used to be. And this is a skills gap for most people. It's not that they're bad employees. In fact, they are. It's a testament to what great employees they are because they're giving so much of themselves, but they're doing it in a way that really isn't sustainable for long-term success. And so giving people some of these attention management skills, productivity skills based in attention management is the first thing to recognize. But also it's important to recognize that leadership is not immune to these problems. And if they have bad behaviors, those bad behaviors trickle down into the organization and create a culture that is chaotic and fast-paced and constantly connected and a little bit overwhelming, not on purpose. It's just because they're dealing with all the same problems. And so, just simple things like don't email your team after hours. schedule the send. If you are working after hours, maybe because you have some flexibility as far as your schedule, that's one thing, but don't impose your work schedule on other people. If people know that you're emailing them after hours, those dedicated workers are going to think, well, if you're working, then I'm going to be working. You clearly need me, and so I want to be there for you. And so if you're going to email me at 11 o'clock at night, I'm going to be watching for that email, and I'm going to respond. And when I call this, I call this to leaders' attention, they say, oh, shoot, I didn't mean to create that expectation. And even when they say, like, yes, I know that I send you emails at night and on the weekends, but I don't really expect you to respond until the next business day, that doesn't work because people are ambitious and they're driven and they want that gold star. And they're going to say, hey, boss, if you're working, I'm working. So you have to lead by example.
I think that's so important. And it's something that I have been really trying to focus on, and that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because this is something bigger than just a to-do list or a fancy Chrome extension or some sort of productivity strategy. It's a lifestyle and a personal choice as a leader and as an individual.
Absolutely. I think it's really critical. We've had a shift in the workplace. It's clear. I mean, we are very clearly out of the industrial age and into the knowledge age. And so people are now knowledge workers, which means that the most important tool that they bring to work with them every day is their brain. And so how their brain is functioning that day has a real impact on their work output. And so, you can't think that, well, if I work all the time and I'm starting to feel resentful or burnt out, that's not going to affect their output. And when we do other things, when we have downtime and we do creative things and hobbies and spend time with family and friends, that makes us more creative and more innovative, and it actually makes us better at our jobs. So for knowledge workers, sometimes the best thing that you can do for your work is not work.
Let's take a reset. This is Jessica Miller Merrill, and you're listening to the Workology podcast sponsored by Clear Company. Today, we're talking about the secrets to productivity and attention management. We're talking with Maura Thomas. You can connect with Maura on Twitter at MNThomas, MNTHOMAS.
This podcast is sponsored by Clear Company. Clear Company is the world's fastest growing talent management platform, allowing companies to easily hire, retain, and engage more A players. Visit clearcompany.com to sign up for a free demo.
You also talk in great detail in your workshops and your books about personal workflow management. Can you kind of talk us through what that is and what it entails?
Yeah. So the truth is that the way that we operate, right? We have all of these, when I talk about living a life of choice, right? We all wear all these hats. Not only are we a business leader, an employee, a professional, a colleague, but we're also perhaps a partner, a spouse, a parent, a child, a grandchild, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a niece, a nephew, a friend, a neighbor, a volunteer, a community member, a global citizen, right? We wear all of these hats. And in all these hats that we wear, we have dozens or hundreds or thousands of tasks and actions and responsibilities and commitments that we have to manage. And doing all that is really, really hard. And what most people don't recognize is that you can systematize the way that you operate to keep all of those details of your life running smoothly. There can be a way that you operate so that you can more effectively manage and track and stay on top of all of that stuff that you need to do in order to keep all of those parts of your life moving smoothly. And so a workflow management process is the secret. It's just like flying a plane, right? Flying a plane is really just a system of steps. I do this and I do this and I do this and I check that and I check that and I do this and then I do that until you get to the destination. And a workflow management system is really the same thing when it comes to managing the details of your life.
I love it. It's a checklist, it's a process, it's a system. And maybe for those of us who aren't fans of those things, it still needs to be a part of our lives in order to be able to function at our best.
Well, otherwise, we're really just relying on our brain. So most people tell me I write things down to help me remember. And you are correct. when you write things down, it does help you remember. But but there's so much. I think of all the things that you write down in order to remember them. I mean, our lists and we have flags in our emails, and we have sticky notes, and we have our notebook that we bring into meetings with us, and our journal, and we have all these places that we write things down. So we write all these things down, and we're telling our brain, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. And then we wonder why we can't focus on something, because our brain is so overlaid with don't forget, don't forget, did you do that, don't forget, don't forget, how about now, is now a good time to remind you, how about now, how about now, how about now. And so we are often the biggest the one who interrupts ourselves the most. And so where most people write things down so that they don't forget, a workflow management system enables you to write things down so you don't have to remember. And for those of you who are a little bit more creative, that actually frees you up to be even more creative if you create some systems, or if you implement some systems to handle all the minutia. Then that frees you up to be even more creative, even more innovative, to really use your brain for bigger, more important things than I have to get milk and file the expense report.
You said in one of your recent articles, productivity is a combination of skills and tools for both organizations and individuals. Regardless of the software, apps, and gadgets that a company invests in for its employees, those tools aren't going to make the employee more productive unless they are taught a solid methodology with which to use those tools. I love this quote, and I feel like it just is a great reminder that it doesn't matter all the fancy tech that you have. The foundation needs to be set and built in order for you to be your most productive and effective self.
Yeah, so the analogy that I was making, that you excerpted from, is that productivity is a lot like a sport, right? Like let's just take golf, for example. If you went out and bought the same set of golf clubs that your favorite PGA pro plays golf with, it doesn't automatically make you a PGA pro. And if a PGA pro went into the local Goodwill and bought whatever used club happened to be for sale there at Goodwill, and then had to play the Masters with that one club, you wouldn't expect them to win the Masters, because golf is a combination of the tools and the methodology for using the tools. And beyond the technical methodology, right? Because you could say that I know how to use a golf club. I know that you hold the leather end and you swing the metal end. Therefore, I know how to use a golf club. Still doesn't make me a golfer. And so the analogy here is that we all have these tools, and we even know, like, if I click here, that's how I make a new calendar appointment. And if I click here, that's how I send a new email. So we know we have all these amazing tools, and we have the technical proficiency of how the tools work, but we don't have the methodology. And so having the tools doesn't really help us. Without the methodology, we still struggle because most people don't have a good workflow management system.
Well, it's something that I really want to be investing in, and I'm excited to hear about the different resources and workshops that you have. Can you talk us through about some of your books and resources that you have available for somebody who says, hey, I need help, I'm ready to commit, I'm going to not treat the problem with a tool or technology, but I want to lay a foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So my first book is called Personal Productivity Secrets, and that book details my workflow management system. It explains all about how to use it. My system is called the Empowered Productivity System, and I also have an online training available at empoweredproductivity.com. And so between the tool and the training, the book and the training, regardless of how you get the training, whether it's live with me inside a company, I occasionally do public seminars throughout the country that you could attend live, or the online training. That a combination of those things is how you can learn my empowered productivity system for workflow management. And then my second book is called Work Without Walls, and really that is about how can leaders create an environment where their team can be their most productive, where their team can bring their best to deliver to the organization's success every day.
Awesome. Well, last question. So let's say that somebody's listening to this right now and they're like, this sounds great, but I'm just one person in an organization or one person on a team. What are some ways that maybe they can get started?
There are two really simple steps to getting started. I mean, that you might have some feelings around them that might make them a little bit more challenging, but really they are not hard. The two easiest steps that you can take toward attention management are first to recognize that you have the ability to control your environment. Controlling your environment is the first step toward attention management. So we all act as if we are slaves to our environment, right? Oh, it's so loud in here and everybody keeps interrupting me. I can't get anything done. And yet, really, if you gave your colleagues the message sometimes that you would prefer not to be disturbed, your colleagues would honor that. You can't do it 8 hours a day every day, but 15 minutes every hour or a couple of hours in the morning and then hour in the afternoon. It doesn't matter. The frequency and the duration are up to you. But the point is, if you create some boundaries around your environment, then people will respect those. So that's the first thing, is recognizing that we are not at the mercy of our environment. We do have some control. And then the second thing, same idea, except with your technology. We didn't go out and buy our phones so that everybody in the world can interrupt us all the time. And yet that's how we behave. Most people never shut their phone. They never put it on do not disturb. They never put it on silent, not vibrate, because vibrate still distracts you. We have all of these notifications. I mean, do you really need a notification to tell you that you have new email? I mean, let me just end the suspense for you, okay? You have new email. So the only thing that a notification does is distract you. Close out your email when you're not using it, or at least work in offline mode. Shut off all those push notifications. Take control of your technology so that you can then put some boundaries around your environment, around your technology, put yourself in a little bubble, and then you have the opportunity for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour to actually do your best work, to do one thing with your full brain power, get it done quickly and accurately.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's talk about where people go to learn more about you and what you do.
Yeah, thanks. My website is maurathomas.com, and you can find all of the information about training at organizations and training for individuals and speaking engagements. My books are there. You can download a free chapter of both of my books there and get started right away.
Awesome. Well, we'll include some links to the books and to some of the articles that Maura has written. But thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
I'm happy to do it. Thanks, Jessica, for having me. It was a pleasure.
At Workology, we're making HR learning and recertification simple with Learn, our on-demand learning platform providing 24/7 access to pre-approved HRCI and SHRM courses. Visit workology.com/learn to find out more. And use the discount code PODCAST to save 20% off your membership. Now, back to Jessica.
I love Maura's insights and that we all have control over the environment and the distractions that we choose to let into our lives. And interviewing Maura reminds me of this, as during the recording of this podcast interview, I had no less than 2 phone calls, 3 text messages, and more than a handful of emails notifying me that they had arrived. It's easy to fall into the trap where we are always available. I hope that together you and I can become better at attention management and workflow processes. It's something that I am really focused on for the rest of this year. Thank you for joining the Workology podcast, sponsored by Clear Company. This podcast is for the disruptive workplace leader who's tired of the status quo. This is Jessica Miller Merrill. Until next time, you can visit workology.com to listen to all our podcast episodes. Have a great day.
Production services for the Workology podcast with Jessica Miller Merrill provided by TotalPicture.com.